our future tech trainees are going to come out of Swindon.
Right, hello.
And
What?
Hello. Right, look.
Swindon as well, according to Mr. Bushman.
Paul, just, it's 12 o'clock. Hello.
It is 12 o'clock. Hello.
It's 10 past.
Yeah, mine says 10 past. We're late.
Are we live? Are we live?
I think we're live, guys.
And we're recording. So, good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to the 11th instalment of the EV Cafe. 11 episodes. How has that happened? Wow. It's amazing how fast time goes when you're having fun. So I guess to start, a thank you to all those attendees, especially those that are loyal, getting their book stamped and tuning in every other week now and participating. We today have a jam-packed agenda this afternoon with lots of clever clogs joining us throughout the session, 6 to be exact, of whom are all fighting the good fight of zero emissions and sustainable transport and everything else. And they are here to tell us what they are doing today, tomorrow, yesterday, to move and shape the EV industry for the better. So that's right, today's agenda is innovators and disruptors. And as a matter of fact, as a brand, we like to think that we sit somewhere in this category by having launched our very first plan to fully electrify our vehicle range over 10 years ago, which by its very definition, an EV is a disruption to the automotive industry. And to go on to offer the widest selection of battery electric vehicles than any other brand, consisting of 4 models, 13 different versions, body types, conversions, suiting a wide variety of business types. Shameless sales pitch, and if you haven't guessed it already, then I work for Renault. For those that don't know me by now, not only do I work for Renault, my name's Johnny Berry, and I work in the fleet sales department, hence getting my shameless sales plug there. And driving a battery electric vehicle for a little over 6 years now. So I will be the chair, the moderator, the head barista of the cafe today. And I'm also joined by the awesome bunch of the EV Cafe who make it happen every fortnight. I guess you could really call us innovators, really, because the EV Cafe is a new and innovative way of engaging with everyone and keeping the EV champions, the community together. So I guess everyone here is an innovator, including the audience. Sorry, special guest, it's not just you. So who are they? So my fellow innovators, Paul, Sarah, and John, would you like to say hello to the customers? Sarah, do you want to start? Yes,
thank you. I always welcome you all in. I've made sure all the toilets are cleaned and the tables are all disinfected. Please keep your distance. So I hope you travelled here by EV or some kind of bike or foot way today. I'm all about zero emission mobility, however that looks, and I like to support people in trying to shape the way that their countries and cities run, and preferably not with internal combustion engines.
Brilliant. Paul, would you like to go next?
Welcome everybody. Really happy to be here as always. Very excited because vans are a central piece of this whole change to zero emissions, the road to zero. And I'm really keen to make sure that we reflect all of that in everything that we talk about, keeping it industrial and vans, as you can see in the background. But also I give a nod to mental health also. Being a mental health first aider, it's really important that we encourage one another. The last cafe had somebody not feeling so great. It was great to share that encouragement and just share the love, and everybody walked away feeling a little bit more positive. So hopefully you get both of those things, and no shameless plugs from me at all. I wouldn't dare to lower myself. Click here for your next van or pickup or car. Build, said Boris Johnson. You need vans and pickups to do that.
Last but not least, John.
Hello, darlings. How are we all? Well, last time we were on the EV Cafe, I was referred to as an enormous clock. So here I am again. My job this week is to make sure everybody stays to time, because inevitably we talk about EVs, we get very passionate, we get very enthusiastic, and people talk for hours on end. That is a wonderful, wonderful thing. But sadly, there has to be rules, and I'm the enforcer. So look out, people.
That's scary. And last but not least, we will also see Matthew, the northern version of me, as in job role. He will be coming live from the mailroom to ask all those important questions on your behalf to the panelists and special guests. Do you want to say hello, Matthew?
Hello.
Come on, man.
Hello. So yeah, if you have any questions for anyone, guys, at the bottom of the screen you'll see a Q&A tab. Please pop your questions in there, and we'll ask them at appropriate times during the webinar. See you in a bit.
So today we're going to run things slightly differently. We're going to have 3 sections, of which each section consists of 2 special guests. They will each have 5 minutes to present, followed by approximately 20 minutes Q&A, 20 minutes of Q&A. So these will be enablers, private wire connectors, forecourts for electric vehicles, clever billing solutions for fleets, groundwork, car sharers, car subscription ideas. So I hope I haven't missed anything. It does sound like a lot, but we want to make the most of the 2 hours for you. And so we have asked that they keep their time. And as John said, he's going to enforce that. I like to call presentation police, or shall we say, John Vorderman. John in Wonderland.
So, anybody who does get to the 5 minutes, if you hear this sound, you're done. That's it. You're gone. Goodbye. Bend.
Okay. And then for those of you that are new to the cafe, again, just want to reiterate this. It is very much about you, like as the participants, and it is about us. We would love to hear from you. So if you haven't already, please share who you are, where you're from, using the chat box, then we would really appreciate it. And we encourage you to chat amongst yourselves or privately to the panel using this. If you, however, find it distracting, especially during some of the talks of the presentations, feel free to close and ignore it. As I say, as Matt said, if you have a question for the panel, then please click the Q&A tab and we will endeavour to answer your question as soon as we can, either in the chat box or ideally live from the mailroom hosted by Matt. If you want to talk to us, then please raise your virtual hand during the Q&A section, and we'll happily take you off mute, and that way you can cover something we might have missed, challenge us, ask us questions, or just simply say hello to the panel. Heckling is always allowed, and then a quick reminder to the panel, and especially the 6 special guests we have on today, joining today, a gentle reminder to please raise your hand on the camera, like so. If you want to talk, this is just to avoid crossing over each other. So that's really enough from me, I think. So as I say, we've got 3 sections, 2 special guests giving us 5 minutes each their time. Sorry, Sarah, I haven't noticed your hand's been raising. Go on.
There's no news. We're not doing news round this week.
Well, if you've got something that you want to share, then we will happily make time for that, Sarah. I think we'll all agree that we would love to see that. So,
no, we did it on purpose because the guest list this week is so smashing. It wasn't worth losing the airtime for. So next time, perhaps. This time's epic. I'm so excited.
Double time for you, Sarah, next time. So as I say, 3 sections, 2 special guests giving us 5 minutes of their time to present, and policed by John Curtis. So let's kick things off. We've got 1 minute to go to 12:10, where we kick things off. And we have the first 2 very special guests of today, who are Edward Sargent from Pivot Power and Sam Clark from GridServe. So would you like to come on camera then, guys? Hello and welcome to the EV Cafe, Edward and Sam. Sam, you've been here before.
Yeah, a few times. Hi, hello.
Would you like to start, Sam?
Oh, I'm starting, am I?
You are indeed.
Yeah.
And you've got 2 minutes or you get the sound.
Oh, hang on. I'm not showing my screen yet, John. You can't.
Is there a kick-off sound, John? Do we get a whoop and then
exactly.
Edward, don't start, because you'll be out.
You've just lost 30 seconds there, Edward.
Yeah, Sam started 2 minutes ago, so
That's harsh. Right, how is that looking?
Beautiful, Sam.
Can you see the beginning?
Yeah, do you want to make it full
you see
screen?
everything.
You see everything.
Ah, all the slides.
I don't want to show you all.
Your stripy slide and everything.
GridServe.
How's that?
Perfect.
Does that say grab a drink and up the discussion?
Yes, but we've got the drink.
Okay, right. Can I start now, John?
Go.
All right then. So, hello everybody, and thank you, Johnny, as always, for inviting me to Electric Cafe. I wanted to start by talking about the topic before I introduce myself. So, innovators and disruptors. I love to be, would love to be tarnished with both those brushes, I guess, over the years. One thing I'm in an interest of being slightly provocative from the beginning. I think being innovative and disruptive are very, very good traits, especially in this massively growing industry. But what I would also like to pose is that it must be viable, i.e. commercially and operationally viable, whatever it is you're doing, and also ultimately profitable. Because if you don't put those two things in the mix as well, then you end up being a busy fool. And a couple of phrases which I know I've used, and I think Paul might have used a few times on LinkedIn as well, is greenwash and deliver. So we don't want greenwash. We want people to deliver stuff, not just talk about doing stuff. And I'm very passionate about seeing things that actually demonstrate change. So that's my first little pitch. The other thing which I think John has had on his internet or LinkedIn a little while is the global temperatures, just to demonstrate how we need to make change, because the world's getting hotter, guys, and we've got to do something about it. So moving on, who am I? My name is Sam Clark, and I'm a Chief Vehicle Officer of GridServe. Before that, I've been an EV commuter for 15 years. I've owned hundreds of electric vehicles. I ran a delivery company that was fully electric for a decade, which I sold a couple of years ago. And now I am very honoured and delighted to be part of the GridServe team, who are doing things and delivering things like this. So that is one of our solar farms up in York. So rather than well to wheel, we're doing sun to wheel. We're going to take energy out of the sky because, lo and behold, the sun appears every single day. That particular image is showing one of our sites, which is a 35 megawatt peak solar array up in York, 91,000 bifacial panels, which capture energy from the top and underneath. And also they tilt with the sun, meaning that they generate or they harvest an inordinate amount of energy. On one given day a few months ago, we were able to demonstrate that for one EV, we could go to Land's End, John O'Groats 1,000 times the amount of energy we managed to harvest in one day. So getting the energy is something we're very proud of. And then subsequently, and as Johnny mentioned, the electric forecourts is the next part of our journey. So we're harvesting and we're making an awful lot of energy, and now we're going to put it somewhere. And it's going to be into our electric forecourts. This is the first of which in Braintree in Essex. This was a video, but I've done it as a screen grab because the videos don't work that well on Zoom. So just to walk you through what this is all about. This is in Braintree in Essex. You come off the roundabout into our electric forecourt. There is a bay on the left for lorries, buses and taxis. There will be charge points for them. Going around the building, there is a event space upstairs where we'll be having vehicles on show with the courtesy of a car lift, as well as a premium lounge waiting area. Staff parking around the building. And as we go around, we've got disabled access and family and children parking access. Some of the bays, the first ones, the blue ones on the right there, are 7 to 22 kilowatts, and also some parking for the good old ICE vehicles, because we know that might just happen from time to time. Furthermore, there's going to be a lay-by on the left-hand side for a few queuing. If that is ever going to be an issue, that's a good headache for us to have. Sweeping around, then you would then come into the middle of the forecourt with a 200,000 kilowatt peak solar array on the roof of our canopy for our electric forecourt. And down the middle there are the yellow bays, which are up to 350 kilowatt chargers with 90 kilowatt charger bays on the outside at the moment, which will be upgraded in time. But all the vehicles will be able to be charged simultaneously. John, how am I doing for time?
You are 1 minute and 10 seconds.
Thank you kindly, sir. 1 minute and 10 seconds. So, this is the building that will be able to have a host of retail stuff downstairs. So your coffees, your sandwiches, and all that kind of jazz will be catered for downstairs. And then upstairs we have a small gym, we have office pods, we have an exhibition centre, we have car dealership type scenario, but not a dealership. And all of those things will be there and available on every forecourt we build, and we're going to do 100 of these around the country. These, of course, are all pretty pictures, but I'm going to show you very quickly something a little bit more reality, which is the actual site. So there it is in its glory, which was a picture taken just a week ago. So we're getting there, guys, and we're going to build the first one, and it's going to be one of many to come, and I do encourage you all to come and visit it. And on that, just before the gong goes, I will say thank you.
Oh, I didn't get to use my thing.
I know, I didn't want you to.
Very well done, Sam.
You practiced that, Sam, didn't you? To
Yeah.
ensure that John
Up
would
till
not
2
use
o'clock
his...
this morning, timing it,
Yeah, but I got the fear in about 4 minutes, which is why I asked what the time was.
Well done, Sam. Good effort.
I had a stopwatch,
Right.
but I forgot to press it before I started.
Classic.
Edward, you're now up.
Go on then.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm just going to work out screen sharing. Can everyone see that?
Brilliant.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Happy days. So welcome. Thank you very much for having me on. Day 100 of lockdown, if anyone hadn't clocked that. So we've hit a century on the 11th episode. Monumental times. Let's click through this. There we go. For those of you who don't know, Pivot Power, relatively new company, started 2018, early 2018, on a mission. It's probably not worth going through in detail to the audience here. I think it's very clear and clean of what we're trying to do. What it is that we're trying to do, we're taking power off the National Grid's transmission network, and we are putting it into locations that need large amounts of power. When I'm effectively, Pivot Power are an infrastructure company providing multiple megawatt connections. So 1,000 kilowatts per megawatt, looking at that and producing it into areas so that the issue of connections and or the ability for lots of fast chargers disappears, and it's not one of the issues that's holding back the transition to EVs. So what we're looking at doing is creating 40 of these sites around the country, where each site we've got has at least 50 megawatts of terms of connection to National Grid. Everyone will start with a private wire network that we're building, which will have a 22 megawatt capacity cable running out of it. I tend to talk about it as effectively as an extension lead over the fence of National Grid, and the engineering guys have a field day on me because it's not quite that simple. But in essence, that's what we're doing. We're looking at taking areas of power from the National Grid and producing it to the local area so that people don't have connection issues or don't have capacity issues. So we're an unlocker in the infrastructure space. The innovation of what we're doing, in essence, is we're trying to effectively build now for the future. So it is multi-megawatt capacities. This type of capacity isn't necessary today as such. There are definitely uses where it is, but we're looking at connections from 1 megawatt to 20 megawatts. What we are saying, though, is whatever your capacity needs, what you start on isn't what you're limited to. So what we'll put forward is, here is a cable that has a very large capacity, 1, 2, 5, 10, 20 megawatts. Start on what you need, and you then know that you can increase your demand from there on in without being a suddenly surprise of, oh, that's going to require a large upgrade. So to paint the picture, I suppose, at a very basic level, this is the setup at the moment, effectively, how the transmission works. It comes from generators. The power is generated ideally from renewable sources. It goes through the National Grid, large, big pylons. The big metal ones is effectively National Grid. It transforms down, it changes voltage, it goes down to your DNOs or your distribution network operators. It comes down onto their system, and then it comes into the customers. So Pivot's proposition is relatively straightforward. We're taking power directly from the transformers at the National Grid substation, chopping it down and picking up a select handful of customers at each location where we can do that, providing them with large amounts of capacity so that they can be grown into. What that looks like, or tends to look like, is in essence exactly as here. And again, I call this a wiring diagram. The engineering guys have a field day on me because it's not exactly detailed, but hopefully paints enough of a picture where we're providing large capacity for the likes of people who want to set up electric forecourts or have fleets and looking at things. So it's looking at that. You'll see also there that there is a battery in the corner. We are utilizing energy storage at the substation to bring in more renewables into the grid mix. So this whole model is a combination of storage for renewables and providing large capacity for users across the country. First site, I'm going to actually talk through an example here. Very aware on time, but actually we're building this in Oxford at the moment. Shovels go into the ground probably end of August, beginning of September to start digging the wire, and we're hoping to have it up and running December. Although commissioning is quite tight and Christmas will probably get in the way, so it might be early next year, where we're actually deliver our first site or capacity to the first site in tandem with Oxford City Council. So we've got the connection, the battery's being built, and effectively the first one will be a super hub at Redbridge Park and Ride, utilising that space and putting in 4.5 megawatts of capacity. Going on from that, going back to the map, we've got another 2 sites coming up in 2021 and a whole ream of sites coming afterwards. And so John can't use his buzzer, I will stop there.
Perfect timing.
2 seconds.
Sorry, John, doesn't look like you're going to have to use your didgeridoo, whatever you've got.
My enormous clock.
Thank you very much, Edward and Sam. We have got a couple of questions on the chat box and the Q&A, so I would like to bring Matthew from the mailroom to come in and ask those questions. There is a question that David's asked, Sam, which is one question I was going to ask actually. What's the planned rollout rate across the country for the GridServe model, Sam?
Well, the aspiration is 100 sites, and we're looking to do that in the next 3 to 4 years. Obviously, because of current situation, things have been delayed before we even really started, but we're only a few months behind where we anticipated to be. There's an awful lot of planning and process that has to go into each site. So, you know, we are reviewing tens and tens of sites every single day at various different stages. But yeah, the aspiration is that we'll be up to those sort of numbers in a handful of years.
Okay, excellent. Matt, is there any questions in the chat box that have been asked of the special
Loads
guest?
of questions for Sam as usual. You know, that's it. We get Sam on, and it's just Sam. What's this? Sam. Sam, are you ready?
Yeah, go on then. Hit me.
Go for it, Cole. Let's smash through these. What's the planned rollout rate across the country for the GridServe model?
Just did that one.
Yeah, you've just done that one.
Yeah.
Where is the where in Braintree is that site?
Oh God, that's put me on the spot.
It has, hasn't it?
Yeah.
It's in Braintree somewhere.
Yeah.
To help you out, Sam, someone got it right. It's down near the A120 on the south west side, I think it is.
That's the one.
We've talked
There you
about it
go.
before. Cracking site.
Yeah, it's a great location on the main A road, yes, and it's very close to Braintree, but that's as close as I can give you because I can't remember.
It's probably best that you don't, because you're going to get a lot of people going there, I think.
Yeah, I think you are, pal. Do you have a map of future sites beyond Braintree, or is it a closely guarded secret?
Yes, we do, and yes, it is.
There you go.
Sam, can you do us a favour? Can you run for like Prime Minister or something, just so we can get some clear answers to questions?
No.
There you go.
Brilliant.
Really.
That's everything that had built up in the chat in the questions and answers so far.
Just one thing, actually. I did notice that Sam's already answered a question on the Q&A. It was to do with the charging slot in advance to avoid during busy times. So I know you felt once the demand requires it, but
yeah,
can you sort of tell us when you plan on? I imagine it being like when McDonald's opened and the queue of cars going through the drive-through, but coming to GridServe.
Yeah,
especially as you launch. You know, when you've got a lot of EV drivers from all over the country that want to see this thing.
Yeah, it's unbelievable the amount of interest we've already got without even saying anything really to anybody. So it's going to be interesting. It's a good headache to have. I should also mention, which I didn't because of the pressure of John's clock, is the 5 megawatt battery on site, which is one of the other questions in there. So the reason why we'll be able to charge so many vehicles simultaneously is because we've got a very, very large battery on site as well. So that's in harmony with the grid. As far as the question you asked. The booking system, yes, there will be one when demand requires it, which may well be very, very soon. But we'll also have memberships and pay as you go, so anyone can turn up and use it at any time, as well as various different membership models for either the individual user or a commercial entity that has a fleet of vehicles. But booking systems are probably going to be needed in the future, which, like I said, is a good headache.
Brilliant, thank you. Sarah, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I've got a question for... What?
And then Paul, sorry.
You go, don't
You
worry.
go first, Sarah, sorry.
No, I'm slamming you out. I'm going for Ed, please. I have a question for you, Mr. Sargent. I was thinking about what you're saying about innovation and through sort of the provision of your private wire. Could fleets maybe use your super hubs instead of reinventing the wheel at their own fleet
my
depots,
question.
but then what would they need to pay for that? Would that be expensive to them, or could you work in some kind of model with the local authority to subsidise their use rather than investing in their own stuff?
Great question. It's at the moment, taking Oxford as an example. The council are actually looking to put a fleet depot on there that they operate at arm's length, and we're working with them to provide enough capacity so that they could open that up to other fleets. So again, where we run the wire, if the fleet or a depot nearby has enough demand, we could run a cable straight in. But we are looking at other sites that we're building out further forward to say, especially to industrial estate landlords, look, there's a spot outside. Let's put some capacity so that people don't have to, while they transition, invest heavily ahead of schedule, so they can use other spaces and super hub locations as a stepping stone while they get themselves sorted out. So yes, absolutely. Hopefully that's coming forward in Oxford. Coventry's looking really good for that as well, and consolidating demand into a location. We're also working with some fleet customers and saying how often do you use it and what could be utilised. So we've got bus depots that are really exciting, and trying to work out what area do they have around them for other people to use. In essence, it just, as Sam alluded to earlier, makes great business sense that the more it gets used, the better, because we've got to focus on EV, and there is effectively limitless capacity. It's open to all, so whatever we can do, as long as the demand's there.
Well, the best thing you can do is have very early engagement with the local businesses and communities, because otherwise they may be planning stuff you didn't even know about when you could integrate quite carefully.
Absolutely. We found really good uptake with the local authorities who we go to. I think, half of everything's luck, and a lot of this is timing in this. They're really trying to get stuff done. And with what we're doing, it seems to be unlocking doors, because land capacity and availability are real concerns there. So if we can remove some of that concern by providing as much capacity as they need, we can build around it. So no, very much master planning and looking at how we unlock as much as we can, because we're building for the next 30 to 50 years, not for the next few months.
Thank you.
No worries.
So, Sarah completely stole my question, but
Yeah.
and then followed it up with my follow-up question. So I mean, that's completely fine.
Okay, I need to repeat the answer.
No, please don't. But what I was thinking was that I'll be honest and say I really, until a few weeks ago, never heard of Pivot Power. What are you doing to engage with fleets in particular? Because there's some big fleets out there. We DPD, DHL, Amazon, all of these guys are significantly investing in Mighty and other big companies investing in electric vans, a large percentage of which will be at depot. Are you engaging with those kinds of fleets to understand where they want to deploy stuff, and how are you getting to them?
Yes, in short, and how we get to them. We're one part of the pie, so unlocking that capacity, looking at providing the capacity that they need also entails land and other areas. So landlords is a big one, industrial estates, and actually, to be honest, as I said, trying to go down the route of local authorities in terms of unlocking things like park and ride, and trying to get more of a bigger element. You can have sites that can do multiple elements either side of a fence. So how can we look at the bus depots that need to electrify, and actually are well ahead in terms of percentage of how much they've done of their fleets in comparison to where we're going. So providing that capacity, trying to get as many people involved in that as possible. And we're seeing really positive feedback from a few of the fleets that we talk to, in the sense that they realize it's quite a large capital investment. So they're already going out and saying, well, if we do put a couple of megawatts into our depot, who could use it while we're not using it? And we're seeing tie-ups around the space. So to be honest, I think it's really positive. As the transition happens, it's going to become more and more obvious. And hopefully, we can provide the elements to unlock it where we can do it.
John, you're next. You've got your hand up, and then after Matt, if you can just go through the questions in the Q&A tab, that'd be fantastic.
I've got a question for Matt, which is, how on earth do you chug that much juice in one go? And the question for Ed, which is about the funding model, Ed. 30 to 50-year investment, payback on return on investment is going to be very slow. How are you funding this whole program to make massive infrastructure investments, yet customers paying for energy will be some way down the tracks?
Yeah, so great question again. I mean, we're very lucky. We went out for a funding round that ended up getting acquired by EDF Renewables.
Yep.
So that's going to help in terms of secure capital. But in essence, the combination of a 50 megawatt battery working effectively the model that at transmission level helps pay effectively for the connection up front. What we do on the private wire and putting that out there is much more longer term. You wouldn't do it on its own, but a combination of the storage model and the private wire works if you're looking at an infrastructure model. So in essence, it's a combination of all these elements with a large amount of risk on certain bits of it. But when you join it together, it works as a great offering. Yes. And we're very fortunate with EDF Renewables that they've got the view that this needs to be done.
And may I just have a follow-up? EDF nuclear, moving into renewables, is that pure renewables or is that a mixture of nuclear and solar, wind, tidal and so on?
So there are three divisions within EDF that, having been bought by them, probably not as well versed as they should be, but nuclear is a division, energy is a division, so the supply side, and renewables is the division. We've been picked up by renewables, who are building a lot of wind farm and solar and are making quite a few announcements of late as well of what they're doing. So we've been picked up on that side, but as a group, they've got a very ambitious plans of what they want to have under operation in terms of storage and renewables targets. So I think it's all part of the mix on all of that. But where we go is very much trying to combine renewables and produce things at a level within England and Wales. So that's our focus as Pivot.
Cool. And we'd like to see you in Scotland at some point. Thank you.
Definitely.
Over to you, Matt.
Brilliant. Yeah. So a question for Ed. What's the reason you only come off grid sites? Is it because of the capacity available?
Yes.
There you go. That was nice and easy.
What we like.
Both Sam and Ed, what obstacles do you face today in your activities that slow them down or make them more difficult or expensive? What would you like to see change?
Global pandemics are a bit of a problem.
Yeah, they're a bit of an issue, aren't they?
Yeah, I think for me, it's I just like to see the rate of adoption speed up, but it's a standard demand. Other than that, we're kind of cracking on with things. As I alluded to earlier, I think the tide's behind us, and a lot of places we're kind of pushing on an open door. 2 years ago, it was very different, but I think everyone's really woken up to what's needed. Yeah. What needs changing? I think just people's ambition. People need to stop planning as if everything that's available today is what's going to be available in the future, and take bigger steps into what they could have going forward, and plan for that. I think.
And what about yourself, Sam?
Yeah, I mean that's a very good answer from Ed. I struggle to add to that, apart from to say that I think I've said in one of the last cafes that education is still very, very important. Helping the wider industry, wider people that are the 99% who aren't in registered EVs right now, to help educate them to try and increase this uptake, which as Ed said, the tide is with us for sure. Any further pressure from government in terms of legislative intervention to help push this along, I would welcome. And then as a business directly, charging vehicles is one revenue stream of about 12, and we're being very creative in the way in which we generate multiple revenue streams in order to make the commercial viability, because ultra rapid charger on its own with nothing else going on is not going to work. So it has to be a commercial enterprise with different facets linked to it.
Yeah, utilising that dwell time to make some extra money. Brilliant. Sam, obviously this one be aimed at you more. Charging costs vary hugely. Will there be standardisations in cost per kilowatt across the country? Are you going to standardise your prices at GridServe or?
Yes, we certainly will be to begin with, and we may well look at different rates of energy cost depending on the speed. So it may well be that different bays have different rates, which is already happens with other networks. But I would like to think that we'd have a standardisation of that model throughout the UK.
I think you mentioned that last time we were on, Wiz, which I thought was a really good idea. Edward, you probably pretty much answered this with your tie-up with EDF, but do you see DNOs as competing to you, or who are you looking to work in collaboration with? Well, I guess that's really EDF now, isn't it?
Elements. I mean, EDF have been amazing. They bought us and see us as a strategic partner in essence. So they're supporting us all the way through from the renewables side, but effectively have said, crack on with what you're doing and bring the speed and ambition, because we want this to be rolled out as quick as possible. I wouldn't say DNO is a competition in the sense that we're looking at trying to do large multi-megawatts, and in essence, try and just take some of the heavy lifting on the early stage elements that they could do, but they've got a lot to focus on in terms of on-street charging, residential areas, smaller sub-megawatt levels. And not to forget, we're focusing on EV, but we kind of need to start thinking about heat as well, and how we decarbonize that. So if we're going to electrify heat, the DNOs have got their work cut out. So we're limited to our geography of where we are, depending on the national grid substation. So where we can help, very keen to, but we're not a silver bullet. We're definitely part of the solution. So no, definitely wouldn't see them as competition. And there's some really good people doing some great stuff there, but just getting it out there as fast as possible so that everyone can feel comfortable that when they go on their long journey, there is definitely somewhere for them to charge at a rate that's useful for them.
Cool.
Sorry, Matt. I can see Paul's patiently waiting there. He's got his hand up.
Sorry, Paul.
Can be patient occasionally.
Just give me a slap.
The question, it was from Adrian Pinson from Skanska, which obviously a national company with a lot of vehicles all over the place, and some going home, some going to site, different points of charging potentially. So I just kind of wanted to come back to that cost question, because of the massive variance between, so let's say, home charging or at the office charging versus the public charging. Does anybody see a solution to that? Particularly as in time, the government will start taxing things and the price model will change entirely. But does anybody sort of see a solution to kind of helping companies like Skanska, and who are particularly focused on their green agenda, but other companies that have a desire to get budgeting in, so that they can be really sure of what that cost looks like?
Yeah, I mean, one of the ways we're going to mitigate that, Paul, is through our partners with Hitachi, is providing leasing packages for commercial and domestic users, which will include the energy that they need to use their vehicles at our forecourts. It will always be cheaper to charge your vehicle at home or at work if you're able to do so. But by virtue of travelling by your vehicle, you're going somewhere, and on long distances, this is the solution for that, and it will always be more expensive than at home or at work. So it just has to be a nice mix and a commercial simplicity, which means that you're able to do something when you're out and about, but you're not having to constantly think about how much it's going to cost. So we're trying to develop models that include and wrap in that energy with the vehicle leasing package to make it a much more fluid option, which includes AC installations at home and at work, all part of the same network.
So in effect, smoothing it out like perhaps leasing companies do with maintenance at the moment. So we might have lots of different providers at different prices, but they'll bundle it and effectively over time smooth that out. Because I think one of our speakers later is going to be talking about that kind of thing as well.
Yeah, and we're entering the same market space, trying to provide a turnkey solution, and it's unlikely that anyone's going to be able to do the entire suite that is required from beginning to end, I suspect. But there'll be plenty of solutions which cover lots of those bases and keep it simple.
John, you've got your hand up.
Hello, darlings. It's 12:40 and time to move on.
We've probably got time for one or two more questions. Just snappy answers. With snappy answers. Sorry.
The head barrister has spoken.
I tell you what. No, John is right. It is time for us to move on. We've got a lot to get through. But to be honest, some really, quite frankly, great questions from the panelists and the audience. So keep it up, and we will have time to answer more questions later on. So Matt, if you can keep them coming in. Now it's time to do a swapperoo. As John's mentioned, it's now time to move on to the next section. Sam and Ed. Sam, could I kindly ask you to turn your camera off for later in the session?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks,
and you'll be back later anyway.
Okay.
And then if we could have, who have we got? So I need to promote Ashley as a panelist. And then Trevor, would you mind turning your camera on, please? Hello, Trevor. Welcome to the EV Cafe. Hello, Ashley. Welcome. You're both on mute.
You're both on mute.
I only mentioned turn your camera on. I didn't say turn your mic on. So,
Hi there, everybody.
you know the score. You've got John Curtis there on the call, and he's going to be policing you on your 5 minutes. Who would like to go first?
After you, Ashley.
Oh, right, okay.
What a gentleman.
I'll flip a coin. Heads or tails, Trevor?
Heads.
Tails. Ashley,
Would
you're
you
on.
buy a car from that man? Never in a million years.
Excellent. Right then. Let me share my screen and we'll get going.
Top man.
Oh, right. Can you see that?
Yep, got it.
Excellent. Right. Hello, everybody. So, thanks, Johnny and Sarah, for inviting us to do this, because I know I've been asking if I can jump in at some point. So, thank you very much for having us today. So, I'll kind of just jump straight into kind of to the solution, if you like, and then I'll give you a bit of background as to where it came from. So, the whole concept or thing behind Mina is that we charge EV fleets with just one bill, whether that's at home or on the road. And this started out as purely a home-focused solution. And background to that is before Mina, I was involved in a business called Split the Bills. So Split the Bills is essentially a bit of tech that sits between energy suppliers and mostly students, landlords, anybody that's sharing a house, and we split the bill. And I thought, we can use some of this to solve some problems that EV fleets are going to have. Well, probably have now, but are certainly going to have as this starts to ramp up. So, in essence, we can help those fleets that return to home or start the day at the end of the day, where the most practical way to charge those vehicles is on the driveway, assuming these guys have got off-street parking. So a few key things to kind of run through are employees keep their existing home energy supplier. And this is kind of a big one, because we've always thought that energy suppliers are going to be a threat to us, but actually the more we started speaking to them, the more they're really interested in partnering with us, because they realize that when you've got thousands of employees and thousands of drivers, you can't force them all to switch. And there's switching sites that will switch people even if you convince them to switch. So that's kind of a big thing about the solution. And then kind of right at the other side, fleet managers, finance teams, they get one invoice for all the energy used at these employees' homes. So there's no expense claims to process. And fleet owners can reclaim the VAT. This is a big thing we've been working on pretty much since day one. And we've been back and forth with our accountants, with HMRC, trying to understand the process for this. But, and a 5% on domestic energy can soon add up for fleets of thousands if they're all charging at home. And then more recently, we realised that we can't just isolate ourselves to public. So we have started talking to, can't just isolate ourselves to home. So we have started talking to public networks to include them all in that same invoice. And then something that we are also working on around smart tariffs is how do you even further optimise that charging to generate even lower costs and greener costs of charging through, I guess, tariffs like Agile, for instance, but as well as doing some integration with National Grid. So pretty simple process. We either work with that fleet to get a Mina controlled charge point installed at the employee's home, or we'll connect to what's already there. Key thing is we're hardware agnostic, so any hardware that wants to work with us, we'll work with. We don't got no bias in that area. Driver plugs in at night. Mina pays, or we have an agreement with the driver's home electricity supplier to then credit that element of energy that's gone into the driver's EV, and the employee gets a single monthly invoice for all the costs that are associated with that EV charging at home. Bit of a complicated diagram, but this kind of just shows like what we sit in the middle of. So we sit smack bang in the middle of public infrastructure, home charge points. We have a feed in from National Grid, and then on the other side, all your domestic energy suppliers. So essentially we give the fleet owner, fleet manager, finance team a single window to look at the charging and the cost of charging amongst their entire fleet across multiple different platforms. A big focus of this has been like a seamless employee experience. One of the things we've realised is that employees just don't want to go from petrol to diesel into this complicated world of EV. So, you know, and have too much uplift. So, key thing we do is we don't reimburse the employees. We don't pay them into their bank account. That would be the easy thing to do, but that causes bill shock, because the chances are if you're paying somebody 50, 60, even £100 a month to reimburse them for the charging they've done at home, that's highly unlikely to result in them increasing the direct debit. Oh, are we out of time?
Oh no.
Boom.
I'm so pleased to use
You
that.
got one.
You've got me. Right, well, that's it then. End. I'll go
Should
to
we
the thank you
say
slide.
you can have 30 seconds just to kind of wrap up a bit, or
Yes.
shall we allow him another minute or so?
Yes.
Shall we?
I feel meaner now.
Oh,
You know how it feels, Sean, now, don't you?
Come on,
Ashley, I
keep
think
going.
I was quite interested, and I'd like to hear more. So if we can give you an extra minute, and John,
Go
if
on
you
then.
just time that minute.
Right, Ashley, go for it, my friend.
right. I'm timing it. I'm on. Right. So yeah, bill shock, big thing that we want to try and avoid there, because I appreciate that's not what employees want, because then they'll go back to their employer and say, oh, actually, my electricity bill's £500 more than I thought it was, because they've just given a meter read 6 months later. So a big part of that. We automatically validate energy supply tariff, because it's, be easy for them to come along and say, oh, my home energy is 18 pence a kilowatt hour, when it's actually 12. And then we monitor real-time switching in the background as well. So people switch energy supplies left, right, and centre. And we keep on top of that using some clever tech that sits behind the scenes. So I'll not get too much into these on this, but we can track business and personal miles to make sure you're only paying for personal miles. We can make sure the right vehicle's charging. We've done a big integration with National Grid, so you can do carbon intensity. But ultimately, this is what the fleet owner's really interested in, like what's the balance of my home charge points, and we deliver that in a single invoice, itemised by vehicle, by charge point, or by driver if they want. So yeah, quick end to that. But that's it.
Brilliant. You didn't allow him to use it again.
Well done, Ashley.
Do you want me to keep going until you think you can use your... There we are.
Oh, poor John. Thanks for that, Ashley. So Trevor, if you wouldn't mind sharing your screen, I think Trevor's going to do something different for the EV Cafe. I think he's got a couple of minutes of which he wants to share a video that he actually recorded yesterday. Was it, Trevor?
Yeah, yesterday we shot this in the warehouse downstairs, so it's hot off the press. A little bit nervous on it, but hopefully we got the message right. Quick intro to me, electrician born and bred, straight after leaving school, run an electrical contracting business out of Peterborough, and we fitted around 400 EV charging points across multiple car dealerships up and down the UK. And that's how EV Blocks was born. So I'll play the video and catch up with you afterwards.
Very much. Thank you, Trevor. Hopefully it works well.
Yeah, can you see that?
We've got the wrong screen by the looks of it.
Let's give it another whirl.
That was risky.
Very risky.
Right, how's that?
That's it. And have you shared the audio as well there, Trevor?
Stop me if I haven't. So
Okay. Fire away.
Hi, I'm Trevor Palmer, and today I'm going to talk to you about how I came up with the idea for EV Blocks. When we first started installing electric car charging points, we were pouring wet concrete into shuttering, and sometimes that would be taking up to 48 hours or 72 hours to cure during the winter, and that was providing a real challenge with getting on and off site quickly and finishing each job. We moved to precast, and over the last 18 months we refined the design to keep making the block lighter but keeping the strength. and also having a universal adapter plate for a charger. So as manufacturers change their fixing arrangements, our block is still suitable. Down below you can see the finished result. This is a block ready to be installed at civil stage, and as you can see, all the ducting's in place, ready for the electricians to pull the cables in, or it can be left with the plate on until the EV charger has been selected. These are fixed down with an M12 countersunk bolt and gives a nice flush finish. When you are ready to fit your EV charger, simply place your charger on top of the adapter plate, drill your fixing holes and bolt the charger to the plate. As you can see on this charger here. So on this charger they've got a shroud over the bottom which just covers up those fixing bolts I just mentioned and gives a nice finish. And inside you can see the fixing holes to the adapter plate. Thanks for watching. More information can be found at the website.
Brilliant. Worked really well, the video. So thanks for sharing, Trevor. That was very clever stuff.
No worries. So that's what I've been up to the last 18 months.
Excellent. So well within your time. I can see a couple of questions from John and Sarah. John, would you like to go first? I think you had your hand up first.
Yeah, I would love to ask both Trevor and Ashley lots and lots and lots of interest in both of your solutions. Seriously, I don't think I've ever seen the chat box go quite so mad. And people are asking, can they have copies of your presentations of the video? And I know that we put it on YouTube and people can catch up with it later. So follow on LinkedIn, join the EV Cafe and all that stuff. But they are very, very interested to talk to you. So we need to get you able to interact with people, get your stuff out there. There's business waiting for you guys. As somebody even said, can I invest in Ashley's solution? So there's lots and lots of people here who really love what you're doing.
Yeah, and just before Sarah, just as a reminder, if you're asking the question in the chat box, it might not always be picked up because there's quite a lot of activity in the chat box. So please ensure you put it in the Q&A tab. Sorry, Sarah.
Well, I've got a question for both of you. So how does that work? Do I just have to pick one and then hope to get in later?
We can take the coin if you like.
So, I'll go for Trevor first, if that's okay. I just wanted to know, I love your product, by the way. I just wanted to know, coming from a local authority background, I know how difficult it is to put all the pieces of the puzzle in at the right time, the right pace. But I want to know if you've been speaking to any housing developers who'd be interested in embedding this as a solution before they complete their pavement dig.
So we're just talking to one company at the moment. They're looking to put in 5 tritium chargers, and they're looking to use our biggest EV block for that. So that's in its early stages, but if it comes together, it'll be an amazing sort of case study to tell.
Well, that's my point. So if you were dealing with like a big housing developer, you could be in with them as part of their build package. So it's all from the outset, no matter what charger goes on top, which is the beauty of your product, right? But how do you plan to get in front of all of those housing developer clients?
That's what we're working on now. So we launched in March at the Future Build show, and then global pandemic thing started. So it's just set us back a little bit. But we are getting there with marketing, and a couple of other large building suppliers have approached us to stock this in their branches too.
Wow, fantastic. Congratulations, great product.
Thank you.
Agreed. Got a question for Ashley, Sarah?
Yeah, I have. Oh, okay, great.
A short memory.
Just gobsmacked by Trevor.
So there's no secret, I'm a big fan of Ash and Chris at Mina. I know lots about them, but when I was watching your presentation, it reminded me to ask you, can you tell us more, please, about the mileage tracking and how that can stop people with their own EVs claiming that they drove for business miles? Is that compulsory? Is that part of the package?
Yeah, true. So one of the trials we're about to start is a fleet that's got drivers that do personal business and some that will do business only. So business only, it's dead easy. Assuming they've only got one EV, there's only that EV connected to it. But then on the flip side, you've got those that are doing personal and business miles in the same vehicle. So the this particular company we're about to start a trial with, I did ask him if he could name him, and he said yes. So we're about to start a trial with Mighty next week to look at their personal their drivers that do personal and business miles. And for that trial, we are well, two things. One, there's a manual input, so you can trust the drivers to say, this is how many total miles I've done this week. This is the total miles I've done for business. But second to that is a lot of companies that do personal business miles have got apps that already exist that the drivers are already using. So we can either take data feeds from them, or one of the apps that's kind of free, if you like, on the App Store that we've noticed some fleets are using. We just take the report at the end of that month, feed in the PDF, it takes the data off it, it's HMRC compliant, postcode to postcode, and we just mash that data into the cost of the charging over the month and make sure the business gets billed for the right amount of
okay, so there is an element of trust there. There is a bit of like user trust. Okay.
There is, if they're using the manual input side. If they're using one of the existing apps, then it's based on them tracking postcode to postcode. But if they've got nothing,
absolutely fantastic. You've only got to have a scroll through the chat box now and just see the support that you're getting, Ash. It's been fantastic to hear from you. Thank you. Paul's got another.
For both, yeah.
Ask a follow-up question to Ash. I noticed, I think, that you kind of have a fixed monthly fee. Is that right, for all the charging?
So that's where this whole business started. So we started out looking at consumer only, and the idea was getting a consumer into an EV, unless you're an EV enthusiast, all the fears are around how much will it cost to charge, and how much will it cost me to have a charge point installed.
Yeah.
And we thought, well, if you can just flatten that into a subscription, a bit like Netflix or Sky, you pay £60 a month, you get a charger installed on your home, and all the energy you'll ever need to charge it for a given number of miles that you tell us. You can then
do
start
that for both home and public charging. You give it a total. Have I got that right? Or
yeah, essentially, yeah. So there's that was the initial proposition. That's not the proposition we're doing with the larger fleets, because larger fleets are paying for actual usage. But
right.
for consumers, and we've also realised more recently that small businesses. So if you've got 1 to 5 vehicles in your fleet, the easiest thing to probably do is to pay a flat fee to charge them vehicles.
Yeah.
And we can do home only. We can do ones that wrap in public as well at certain places. And it just takes away that fear of, will this thing cost me £10 a month, or will it cost me £110 a month? Because we take the rough with the smooth on the usage there. And it's brilliant for small business, I guess. Is what we've heard anecdotally with a finance team that just knows what to expect every month.
Yeah. I think that was to the point of a question earlier. I don't know if you heard it, about that kind of charging, the variance in costs, which is something that puts a lot of people off. So if you turn up to a 350 kilowatt DC charger and want to charge at 100 kilowatts, so for your vehicle, 100 kilowatts an hour, then it's going to cost you 33p or whatever it might be. And then if you charge on an AC 7 kilowatt, it might only cost you 20p. And it's that variance of over 50% in real terms that is impacting the decision making. Not necessarily it becomes a problem, but it's a decision maker's nightmare, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. And it's almost like an insurance policy in that.
John?
Just got to say, this chat box has gone mad, and I see Trevor's responding rapidly. Good man. Graham Tunks at Jobarco talking about, they own a stake in Tritium, and the solution could work really, really well for them. And I think that's what the EV Cafe does. We bring together like-minded people who are able to say, I've got a thing, do you need a thing? And we've got loads of people needing things. It's brilliant. This is where business is getting done.
Fantastic. I think now's a good time, we're halfway through, to bring Matthew back from the mailroom. We have about 10 minutes to cover some questions from the audience. So as snappy answers as possible, please, Trevor and Ashley.
Cool. Ashley, let's start off with a right good one for you. How can I invest in Mina?
You can drop us an email.
Bro, there you go. That'll snap it nice and snappy.
Yeah.
I've got
Ashley will happily take your money off you.
Yeah, brown envelope, cash on the doorstep.
Brown envelope, cash only.
He's Mr. Chilled, isn't he? Yeah,
Don't
you
tell
can
Chris.
email me. Yeah, whatever.
So, Ashley, do you have the amount split by reg number or just one amount for the bill?
We can split it by reg number or driver.
Bro, how can you determine what is an EV charging and what might be a heat pump or other electrical items in a property? As people switch their energy providers quite often, does your system catch up with this when moving house, etc.?
Yes. So we connect to the charge point directly, so we know it's the EV charger that's consuming the electricity and when. And in terms of tracking supplier switches, yes. So we've built a system that piggybacks on the back of another system, which will track when customers move energy supplier. So if they're with someone like Look After My Bills and they've been moved and they didn't even know it, we'll probably know before they know.
Well, and another one for you, Ashley. Does the EV energy consumption magically disappear from the homeowner's bill?
In some cases, yes. It depends on the relationship we've got with the suppliers. So in some cases, yes. In other cases, it will appear as a credit, like EV charging credit. So essentially, the direct debit won't be impacted. The bit that the homeowner has to pay won't change.
Well, Trevor, one for you. Can this be manually lifted by two people? No high-ab stroke crane?
Not recommended.
Not recommended. And do you supply bespoke shrouds?
Let's talk.
That's Gareth Jones wants to talk to you, Trevor.
Oh, who was that, sorry?
Gareth Jones.
Gareth Jones, brilliant.
Gareth, speak to Trevor and he'll talk to you about it and do one for you. All right, who's this? Rachel Shipman. A ramble for Sam and Trevor. Or maybe not for open forum. I'll read that one first, Rachel, before I ask it then. Ashley, does it deal with back to grid or vehicle to grid?
Well, that all depends, to be honest, on the vehicles and the charges. But we've had we're having conversations with a company that's built software to enable vehicle to grid. But at the moment, we haven't got anybody on the network that's that's doing vehicle to grid. But we're very open to it, and we know that once we've got, I suppose, significant volume as well, it'll be be a big opportunity there.
Brill. Ash, have you thought of using telematics to solve the issue raised by Sarah?
Yeah, and we're really open to speaking to telematics providers. We've had a few conversations already, but so yes, essentially. if anybody's from a telematics provider and wants to chat, then definitely open to having that conversation.
Oh, watch your inbox fill up now.
Oh,
Yeah.
Don't email me. Yeah, email. Yeah, no, email me, and we'll definitely open to them conversations.
Where do we see on-road charging being rolled out in other European countries? Seems very intuitive for LCVs and heavies for the future, where time to destination is so critical. What were thoughts on on-road charging, people? I guess that's just a general for everybody.
I'm going to jump back in here on the heavy stuff because
Go for it.
Sorry to cut right across there because I appreciate it wasn't there, but for that on-road charging for those fast users, again similar to what Sam's doing, it's looking at the high power, high capacity chargers, and that's coming. Again, government are doing steps in that with their Project Rapid stuff, but the likes of GridServe and other people are rolling this out faster and in more locations. So it's coming. I think the really interesting bit is then how does that integrate with the whole billing element and around that? And that's something that goes. But the sites are being built. Look out for the FastNeds, the IoTs, the GridServes of the world and where they're building it. But definitely coming. We're really interested in looking at sort of bigger vehicle trials and working with some of the OEMs, similar to what's going on in Europe, but the larger trucks that are coming in. DPD's announcement of their very large vehicle that they've just put on the road without subsidy or without trial or innovative area is really exciting. So I think it's there as the demand and the really high speed elements come in.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Edward, for that one. Johnny, apart from this big ramble, which I want to read through properly before we post on, and a couple of nice comments for Ash, people asking him to talk to them because they want to give him some loads of money. That's it from the questions from now.
Okay, excellent.
Can I throw something in? Have I got time, or do we need to move
No,
on?
you've got time, my friend. We would make time for you. I would invent time for you.
So I think Matt might have picked up on it, and I'm sorry I was distracted for a moment, and you may have covered it, but there was a question I think from a guy called Mark, maybe Mark Samuel, about the charging for like DPD and DHL, and they won't be able to do this on-road charging, kind of being able to wireless charge, or because vans won't have time to stop. But I think there's a misconception, I think, generally speaking, that the mileage on vans available today won't allow them to carry out a day's work. But there are certainly vans either just about to get to market or already here that will do well over the average mileage required for a day's work. So I think the model will ultimately be still charging back at the base overnight and not having to kind of charge on a route. And I don't see that changing personally. I'm happy to be contradicted, but the mileage, will go up above 200 miles a day, and 1,000 miles a week in any van is as much as you need. Johnny.
Right, so we have actually got someone raising their hand. Well, we've got Rob Levinsky that wants to have a chat to us, and we have got time. So Rob, what I'll do is I will unmute you, allow you to talk. There we go. Rob, are you there?
I am, yeah. How are you getting on, Johnny?
Yeah, we're getting on all right. You enjoying the episode so far?
Yeah, these are always great, aren't they? Hi, how are you getting on? They're always great. And I think what's fascinating is that the level of enthusiasm for this kind of technology is like mind-blowing. So, yeah, hands down to Mina and what they've achieved.
Brilliant. Rob, we've got 2 minutes. Do you want to share what you're up to, and or ask us questions or whatever you like, really, Rob?
Yeah, well, I think it was quite interesting. I think the Mina conversation really it stimulates a really exciting discussion in the industry. And I think as an energy supplier, so I've worked for Octopus Energy, part of the business energy team, and we have a series of tariffs called the Electric Juice tariffs, which are designed to give businesses a number of different profiles in order to charge their electric vehicles at the cheapest cost in a depot. And then we have a series of bespoke tariffs, and we build tariffs for businesses at home. And we find one of the biggest challenges we're finding is essentially you can never get 100% of the drivers at home to switch to the business preferred energy supply, even if it is 5p a kilowatt overnight, and even if the daytime rate is lower, because people remain quite loyal to their energy suppliers in many cases and find it difficult to switch. So what I think is fascinating about the Mina proposition is the fact that they can settle those drivers who refuse to switch to one of these preferred energy suppliers. And I think that's really fascinating. So if Mina combined with a really smart energy tariff, 100% renewable, and a home-based energy supply, which you can reconcile across the board, it just seems like a really great solution in this market, and something that I think that everybody's crying out for.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you very much, Rob. Anyone got any questions for Rob? Yeah, Trevor?
Sorry, it was just touching on one of the questions from Matt, not for Rob, so I'll go after if you want.
No worries. Well, actually, I think John's going to butt in a second and just tell us that we're running out of time. We're on to the third section.
Johnny, you're running out of time.
Thanks, Rob. I think there's definitely mileage in having you on a later episode of EV Cafe.
Yeah, definitely.
That'd be great. Lots of exciting stuff happening here, so we're always happy to share.
Brilliant. Brilliant. We'll talk afterwards. And we've also got someone else that potentially wants to come off you, but we'll do that later on. So thanks for your time, Rob. Right, so now it's that time. I think, to be honest, we've so far we've had 4 excellent presentations. We've got 2 left, and as John mentioned earlier, the chat box speaks for itself. So the only guilty part is that I feel like we should have given you more time. But so what I can ask Trevor and Ashley, thanks for joining the EV Cafe. If you can tune back in a bit later on, and if I can ask Julian, not Julian's mum, but Julian and James, please. Sorry.
You guys are in trouble today.
We want Alice. We want Alice.
Welcome to the EV Cafe, Julian and James. I know you've had an appearance before, Julian, with some of your comments, which have always been valuable. So on that basis, Julian, I'd like you to start, if that's okay. And John, being the timekeeper.
Julian, 5 minutes, my man. No mucking about.
I know John. I know John is very. He's got his eye on me, so I'm not gonna.
Right, go for it, my friend.
Yeah. All right. Well, you know what? Thank you everyone for obviously inviting me here. It's great to be able to share with you. Can you see my screen, everyone? All good?
Yep, we got it.
Fantastic. So, so I'm Julian Mensah, one of the founders of Voltric, a mobility as a service provider. Now, towards the end of the year, we will be launching a vehicle subscription service, and this will allow users to sign up and access or subscribe to our vehicles for anywhere between 12 to 24 months, giving them access once again to road-ready vehicles. And by using EVs here, we get to tackle some of the problems that we already know about environmentally speaking, i.e. emissions. There's data to already suggest that 26% of people, or rather the UK contributes to 26% of CO2 emissions when it comes to transport. And if you haven't been listening to John Curtis enough already, he's spoken about how many people have died as a result of CO2. And a report from King's College goes on to talk about how 28,000 to 36,000 people die a year as a result of poor air pollution. So this service is not just about providing something that creates an entry to a barrier to entry, which electric vehicles are to some extent for especially people who can't necessarily afford it. But also it's looking at tackling the environment aspect as well to try and move towards a much more sustainable mobility. And with that in mind, with our service sits right at the heart of what we want to achieve with regards to mobility as a service. And what I mean by that is EV subscription is just a start of what we're looking at. And I'm happy to talk more about our EV subscription later on in the Q&A. But if anything, it sits at the center of our model as we aim to incorporate other services to be able to build a complete mobility solution. So what I mean by that is working with everyone from local authority to other disruptors to other establishments. What this means is that as a consumer or as a user, not only would they be able to subscribe to our service and get access to a vehicle, but actually it comes with other elements. So everything from micro mobility. So you've got your scooters, which I believe are now legal if you go to a rental sort of approach. So we fit that perfectly. We didn't have to work too hard for that. And then down to public transport, parking, EV charging, toll booths, congestion charge, which is pretty much free for EVs anyway. So it means that's a great worry about the asset you can now focus on getting from A to B, which has always been in the DNA of what we've been trying to achieve. As part of that as well, we're very much aware of benefit in kind and how professionals use their vehicles. So it's something that as a company and as a team, we're looking at and exploring. We won't have that for launch, but it's definitely something that we're keeping an eye on, especially seeing as benefit in kind is currently 0%. For us, it just wouldn't make a financial viable sense. And I think it's something that Sam spoke about very early on in terms of any disruptor has to also be viable. Now, as a complete solution, the Mass Alliance talk about Mass as the integration of various forms of transport into a single service on demand. And we've seen that with the likes of Uber and loads of other services that are coming in. And this is what Mass is really truly is about. It takes away, it provides an alternative to the use of the private car that can maybe a bit, maybe as convenient, more sustainable, and help reduce congestion and constraints in transport capacity. And in some cases can be cheaper. It won't always be the case, but at least it provides an alternative to convenience as well. So what's happening now? Where are we? What is Voltric doing? Well, at this stage, like I said, we're heading towards launch. We will be launching in October, maybe November. As you can appreciate, COVID-19 had an impact in how we were going to launch in the timescales. But at the moment, we have a questionnaire that's out. As some of you may or may not know, I'm a big believer in data and trying to make decisions based on what the numbers say. So please, if you have a chance, check out our website or our channels and participate in the questionnaire. Once you're done, please share it as well. That would allow us to understand, once again, people's perception of EV, of the subscription model. We also plan to launch a pilot scheme. That pilot scheme will consist of 5 Renault Zoes, which means that would allow us to understand, once again, how consumers perceive the service. More importantly, it will allow us to prepare for launch at scale based on the experience we've had with the pilot scheme. We're working with many partners, and yesterday we actually signed an agreement with one partner. I'm not going to name just yet because we want to announce it in an all special way. And then finally, to round off, you know, we're heading towards our second funding round. So I heard someone wanted to invest into Mina. Please know I'm available as well. But yeah, as a result, you know, you can help this innovation, I guess, move forward really. So yeah, other than that, I know I'm in my 5 minutes, John. If you want to reach out, please, this is our sort of channels. Please feel free to get in contact. You know, we really appreciate hearing from other people in terms of what you think about the model and how we can move forward. Vortric out.
Julian Mensah in the house. Out.
Thank you very much.
59 seconds.
Top man.
Thank you very much. Like I said, I wasn't going to let you get me, John.
I'm going to get you in a minute because I've got 2 questions for you, but we'll get there in a minute.
Talk to me.
James, would you like to share your screen?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I want to say hi to Julian's mum because I know you.
Oh, for goodness sake!
You never even said hello. How rude!
She is proudly watching right now. She rang me and said, "Do not embarrass me, okay?"
Hi, mum.
But anyway, sorry. Carry on.
Okay. Hopefully you can see that.
Yeah, got it, James.
Okay, so hi everybody, I'm James Jean-Louis. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer for Zoom EV, and I'm absolutely delighted to be part of our special EV Cafe today. You know, the last on, and I'm going to desperately try and beat the buzzer, but as people that know me might know, that's difficult. And it's also great to know that Zoom is regarded as a mover and shaker in this world of electric vehicles. So very quick background, I've had 30 years experience in the automotive sector. The last 10 have been in the EV space. I founded a company called Charging Solutions 10 years ago. That was one of the first supply and install companies in the UK. That was sold to Chargemaster in 2014. And as you all know, Chargemaster then became part of BP in 2018. And now I'm part of the Zoom team. I'm going to desperately try and change. That's it. Can you see the next slide? Yeah, so I'm just going to start with a kind of current or topical part because in terms of the effect on mobility because of COVID-19. Before COVID-19, we knew that the shift to EVs was growing, and the effect of the post-COVID-19, how we move around is kind of shown here, and the accelerating the growth for change, particularly the move to EVs. Air quality has been a big thing that we've all been aware of and has been highly publicized on the news, and in terms of you know, how better the air quality is, and that's definitely accelerating people's thoughts in the choice of vehicle that they're going to make next time. We're all more working at home. I'm sure most of us on this call today are working from home. And then the other thing, which we're going to come on to a bit later, is the number of vehicles and the time that they're sitting idle has changed. So just touching on air quality, last year there was something like 40,000 deaths related to air quality in the UK alone last year. And as you can see here, 1,752 deaths were saved in April of this year due to less petrol and diesel cars on the road. And a real contributor was the fact that the air quality was so much better. And as most of you will know, this week the government announced a green recovery as part of the plan to rebuild the UK's economy. Now, before the pandemic, statistics shows that our cars sat idle for around 95% of the time. And after the pandemic, this high percentage is only going to get higher. as I've said, we work from home more. We're moving more to flexible working. We're moving to better cars. And all the points that we referred to are part of the reason that Zoom car sharing was formed. And I'll move on to car sharing. In terms of growing markets, there's two that are relevant to what we do. The first one is the growth in EVs. And the second one is, and there's a global phenomenon, that the sharing economy space is growing. Sorry, I'm setting off my watch. She thinks I'm talking to her. Trying to answer. So globally, we know that the EV and sharing economy markets are set for exponential growth. And within 5 years, of the 140 billion that I refer to here, the largest segment of it is going to be in transportation. So it'll be things like ride hailing, car sharing particularly, and micro mobility and peer-to-peer mobility. And that's something that car sharing particularly is what we're focusing on. So Zoom has launched our electric vehicle sharing platform. We enable the use of EVs, whether they're cars, vans, and in the future, who knows what else we'll be adding to our platform. And it covers private cars. Your car could be put on the platform, for example, car dealers' cars, and organizations such as local authorities, universities, and business fleets. And our service enables the user of the use of underutilized vehicles. And that's the thing about car sharing. Johnny, I'm watching that clock, I promise you. I can see the clock getting higher and higher. And the service enables the use of underutilized vehicles. And of course, the other side of it is that they can be, I'm gonna have to throw my watch away. Sorry, that's really thrown me. The service can be used to generate revenue as well. So it's utilizing a car that's underutilized and generating income from them. For example, you can see on there,
Now, James, I think to be fair, because Siri has interrupted you twice, I'm gonna beg clemency on your behalf. Can we give James a little longer?
1 minute. I'm on the last slide. Coming on to the last slide.
Go for it, my friend.
You'll see on there Jaguar I-Pace. So, for example, we've just partnered and been appointed as the Mobility as a Service partner to Jardine Motors. And as you can see from the graphic here, they've placed their dealer demonstrator electric vehicles onto our sharing platform. We're also being approached by businesses who want to provide access as they require access to electric vehicles, rather than having the expense of vehicles as an asset on their balance sheets. So that gives you the concept of car sharing, and particularly with Zoom, we focus on electric cars. We're part of a mobility as a service provider that not only includes sharing platform, but we've got details on our driver benefits bundle, and we also have electric vehicle information as well, electric vehicle insurance as well, and I'll gladly give anybody any information on that as they require. So the future of mobility is flexible, it's usage-based, and it's electric. So thank you very much.
Thank you both. Thank you very much.
Something that just has come up a couple of times. It's that big I word, the investment word. And all I'm going to say is watch this space.
James, would you mind just stop sharing your screen? Then we can get all our lovely faces back on. There we go. Fantastic. Right. So we have got time now for some questions and answers. We'll bring Matt from the mailroom on straight away, just so we can combine some of the questions from the audience. And then give us about 5 minutes, and then if I can ask all of the presenters to come back on, so in case there's any more questions. And one last thing, there is a chap called Patrick who's actually raised his hand on the participant section. Should we allow him to talk? Should we allow him to come and quickly say hello to us? Yeah. Patrick, welcome to the EV Cafe.
Hello.
Hi, Patrick.
Hi, everyone. Well, thank you for giving me some time on the floor. That's very unexpected. Put me a bit on a spot here, but I'm okay.
Patrick, we'll give you a couple of minutes, and John will alert you when you've run out of time.
I'm on it.
Absolutely, no worries. Can't wait for the little sound at the end. No, thank you, everyone. I just wanted to introduce myself and my startup, or our startup, called Bonnet. You can find us at bonnetelectric.com. That's like the car bonnet with a double N. And basically what we do is we pride ourselves in facilitating access and unified payments to every single public charger in the UK. Sounds very ambitious, I know, but we have some in-house tech that we believe is quite unlike anything else our competitors are doing. And we also operate on a pretty interesting business model, which is actually a flat fee per month that drivers pay, and then you basically can charge on any single charger in the UK. We currently have quite a few partners in terms of charge point operators and as well as fleets, especially a large ride-hailing business that we will be announcing quite soon. And it's primarily targeted, as you can imagine, at people who don't have access to a home charger, because, you know, it's all good and dandy if you can buy an EV and charge at home overnight. But if you're in a Victorian terrace building like myself and you want to buy an EV, then you're stuck with using something on the street. So we sort of facilitate access to all of that, and happy to take any questions and talk about any potential collaboration opportunities with any of the panelists here, as we're always looking for great partners along the way. Thank you, guys.
So many innovators. Amazing. Anyone got any questions before Patrick? Me. John, then Paul, please, and then we'll go back to James and Julian, as it's actually their time.
Questions for these guys.
John, who do you have a question for? Patrick, before he leaves?
No, I was going to ask Julian something, but I'm such an idiot. I just got excited.
You got too excited. Sarah?
What is this before Patrick leaves, yeah?
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, Patrick, hi. I'm just wondering how you're engaging with the OEMs. Paul Barnfather just asked. It's a great question.
Oh, that's actually a good one. Well, again, the I word, the investment round, we are going to announce something, if not this week, the next week, and it's with coming from Germany. So hopefully that will be a space to watch out for as well. So that's to answer the partnership question with larger OEMs from Germany.
Excellent.
Okay,
well,
thank you very much.
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Patrick. I'm just going to mute you now. So can we start off with some questions from the panelists? We're John and Paul, and then we'll go to you, Matt. Is that right?
Superb. Julian, my dear chap.
I've been waiting for you. How are you doing?
Right, I've got two questions. One is, how do you get the big boys of public transport to play nice with you? Because when I worked for the Scottish Government, we wanted them to take debit cards as a payment and use that on their buses. Wasn't happening, didn't want to play, and they all said, do you know what, government, go away. How are you going to get them to join a collaboration of transport across a number of different modes?
So just in my experience of working with, please don't shoot me for this, but people who are very stubborn, you have to start with what their need is. So the way we're going to start is, what is their need? What is it you need us to, what is it you have as a problem that we can try goes in line with our solution? That's where we'll start. I think part of collaboration is playing nice. And it's essentially, these guys have, especially if you take out, TfL is a really, really great initiative, and I've always been a big fan of it. Every time I'm going to London, I'm right onto it. But I come back to Swindon, which, by the way, great place, please, thank you. There is no collaboration between the transport operators here, all the way down to the park and ride. So the way I've come to experience is working with other companies within, once again, local authority, is essentially starting with their need first. You're able to meet their need, then they're more likely to be able to work with you. And for me, my argument with working with them is you're actually making life a little bit easier and more convenient for the people around you. However, like Sam said, for us as well, it has to be profitable because we won't have a business. And you have to understand as well, you guys covered this the first time I joined a while ago. Certain areas don't have the same level of demand. So in some cases, we might not be able to work with them. If it's us going, look, we have a solution, we want to incorporate it, and they go, well, actually, only 3 people use our bus service a day. it might not be viable. So these are the things we have to think about. But I'm giving Sarah a wink because she's the one that actually gave us the idea. But essentially, yeah, you know, you have to go meet their need first. And local authority is very different from working with the business where you go, look, let's work together. With local authority, my experience is to say, what is your problem? How can we try and solve it? And in addition, say, look, this is what we want to be able to do to make things work for not just yourselves, but us as well.
Thank you, Julian. Brilliant answer. Right, I'm done. There was a follow-up, but...
You sure? Go ahead. I'm ready for you, man. I'm ready for you.
You know what? What I was going to ask, and I think it's an open question to all of the people who've presented, is how can we help? We are all hugely connected people individually and collectively. How do we help you and James and all the other people that have come along with brilliant ideas? Because you all say it has to be profitable. Part of profit is getting customers.
Yeah.
Hit me.
So I think first and foremost, let me start by saying you guys are helping. The EV Cafe has really helped open doors for us as well. And one of the collaborations that we've had has come out as a result of some of the relationships that I have with some of you guys here. So that's a good start. The next stage for us really is as Vaultric, is proving our concept. So with the questionnaire that's currently live, we need people to be able to participate in that, to give us the data, because that data is so vital for us to not just go to funders and investors and OEMs, but actually for us to go, well, hold on, this is our vulnerability. This is what we need to adjust accordingly before we go to launch. Because I used to work in Nationwide at the back end. I used to do the recommend a friend scheme. And as a result, I used to see things that used to go wrong, and I hate poor customer service. So one of the things that part of the business model, and Brent, my colleague, would tell you, is that we have to have customer excellence. We want to achieve it all the time, but it is part of our top list. So doing these pilot schemes, doing this questionnaire, it's valuable data to tell us, this is your risk, this is your vulnerability, and this is how you can fix it. So in terms of helping us, just helping us put those things out there, you know, communicating to the public. You guys have a lot more reach than some of us do. So that would help. But that's my response to that.
Top man. Cheers, buddy. Matt, have you got any questions?
Well, sorry, I had a question.
Go on, Paul.
I had a question for James. So James, you mentioned the magic word for me, vans. So you've got vans on your fleet. I'm interested in a sort of a ride-sharing kind of sort of model that you're offering. What sort of demand are you getting from customers with regard to vans? Is it more a consumer, I need a box to chuck stuff in, or is it more businesses that are maybe more occasional users of vans, or is it the longer term stuff?
It's a combination of both. Having said that, the addition of vans onto our sharing platform is really very new. It started with cars. The traction that we've been getting has been with cars, but clearly retailers have vans as well, and electric vans, of course, are growing and growing, as you know too well. So we're just starting to see vans coming onto the platform, but it's something, you know, if you need a van, as you would, you know, if you like, just for the period you need it, then sharing that asset. And if you're the asset owner, of course, that van isn't turning its wheels all day, every day. And it's a brilliant way of utilizing that idle vehicle and generating revenue at the same time.
Particularly at weekends when, you know, the businesses are not using them and the consumer is using them. Yeah. And because I'm
sitting there not used, and as you rightly say, at weekends are the times when people will need to move stuff around when they've got time to do it. So absolutely, and we are seeing the growth in requests for that.
That's great, James. I'm thrilled that
so I'll be coming to you saying Vanarama need to put all their electric vans on our platform.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll try and do that.
Right. Sorry, Sarah. Can we give some audience time now? Is that all right? And then we'll come back to you later.
I suppose so.
Matt, over to you in the mail room. I've seen there's a couple of questions from John and Julian.
Yeah, Julian, firstly and foremostly, I'm sorry, I'm showing my age here a little bit, but I've had to come and join you. It's that background of the beach. I don't know if anyone else remembers this, but Mr. Phone Jacker. Not come and join you on the beach, Julian.
Oh my goodness.
Sorry, mate. You know I love you. That image, just the background there. I've been sat here thinking Phone Jacker for the last half hour. Listen, there's been several questions to both you and to James around the COVID-19 and keeping the vehicles clean and safe, and how are you going to ensure that they're clean, and if they're on a ride share, how is there going to be sort of insurance that they're going to be sanitized between drivers? So, I mean, to both of you, to James and to Julian, what are your views on that?
So, actually, James, you go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, we are. There's a lot of retailer guys that I know are online right now with us, and just the way that, if you think of the ways that cars are being sold and how taxis are being sanitized in between rides, then all of the Zoom platform members, so the vehicles with the people with the vehicles, of course, sanitization of the vehicle is so important. So we give guidelines as to what people should do and what should be carried out to make sure that prior to the next sharing event, that vehicle says. So it's so high on our priority, of course.
Yeah, and so with us as well, first and foremost, you have to understand with our model is not just about a month or two. We offer 12 to 24 months because we're trying to replicate the long-term perception of vehicle acquisition. As a result, all our vehicles are brand new, and they should come to meet the standard of, in terms of sanitization and being very, very clean. And through our partnerships with the manufacturers, we know how to address the vehicle, because I'm sure some people will be thinking, well, what happens after the 12 months or 24 months? We have agreements already in place where we are able to repossess the vehicle in another capacity. And to add to that question, actually, I think I saw someone ask about sort of accessing our service or putting something with Zoom. And actually, we've actually spoken about that. We've spoken about the idea that Vaultrec customers can actually put their vehicles onto, Vaultrec customers put their vehicle onto the Zoom platform, and to also reduce the amount they're paying per month. So actually, if you're paying something like £300 or £400 per month for your subscription, which is all inclusive, actually 1 month you could save potentially £60 or something, or even longer, depending on how much you put it on the platform. So all of that is trying to make things a little bit easier, make it more convenient, and like James says, they've got partners that will address the cleanliness and sanitization of the vehicles. So we're not remotely concerned about that. And like I said, unlike my competitors, some of them give you vehicles that come from other parties, which is fine. They clean them and whatever. But for us, you get brand new vehicle, which hopefully you'll appreciate. Is, well, I don't know, Johnny and Matt, hopefully should be fairly clean anyway. So yeah.
Can I just add to that, Julian? There's an interesting point you just brought in. I know we're talking particularly about COVID-19 and the instructions that we give to our partners and the cars that go out. But there's an really interesting point you touched on there, Julian, about sharing. And I know there's a question on the thing about, a mindset change to usership, not ownership. And you made a point that somebody will pay a subscription for one of your vehicles. And I made the point in my presentation that, pre-COVID, 95% of the time, those vehicles aren't moving. So if they're paying your subscription, then 95% of the time that vehicle isn't moving, or more, as we predict later, after COVID, they can generate revenue, which will offset the cost, or some of the cost, of the subscription.
And again,
sharing.
And can I add to that as well? We talk about sustainable mobility here. Like I've said, EVs are part of the solution. They're not the complete solution. But as John has drummed on about, we still need to get vehicles off the road. So by offering a sharing possibility as well, this is why I'm a big fan of the Zoom platform, that actually, in theory, less vehicles indirectly will be on the road, because people don't have access to get vehicles for their need, as opposed to buying assets that spend most of the time being parked and not being used. So the benefit with our conversation with Zoom is that we're looking at long-term vehicle ownership to some extent, so 12 to 24 months, and Zoom can obviously offer the short-term one for individuals that want it for days or weekends. And hopefully, if we do get into that partnership, we can actually tie the two in for consumers. But to answer that question, we are talking. So,
Brilliant. Right, James. What do you? I'm sorry, I don't know if you were connected with this or not, and I've never heard of this. I'm obviously not being a Londoner. James, what do you think of what happened with Blue City in London? In other words, the concept was sound, but how economically viable is it? Why did Blue City withdraw from London? I loved it. It was an excellent service.
Yeah, interesting question. I think the Blue City, I mean, before I answer it, just to clarify, Blue City as a car sharing service in London was very much where a car was placed at a certain location or locations around London. So you had fixed point, cars are on the street, you went and accessed the car. I don't know why they left. I really don't know why they left, but there are other fixed point car sharing locations around London. However, the difference with what Zoom does is the car could be at a retailer, and we talked about Jardine Motors earlier on, and their cars are on the platform, which then serves the local community. It could be your car on your drive serving the community. So the difference between us and the car sharing platform that we offer to Fixed Point. However, we have started some discussions with housing associations, for example, where they will put Zoom cars in the area around a housing area of a housing association. They're available. So there is a difference between the Fixed Point, and we could run Fixed Point car sharing service if required.
Bro, another one for you, James. Okay. Are you considering EV charge point sharing for subscribers too?
I've just seen that on the screen. I mean, that's Will Burgess, I think. Hey, Will, I think you and I have a conversation.
There you go. Putting businesses together, that's what we like to see.
Last question, Matt.
Last one for you. Yeah, last question, and it's for James. And this is from Simon Brace. Now, Simon has an electric vehicle delivery service up here in the Lake District.
Top man.
A question for James. I think we all agree that there needs to be less cars, vehicles, and the vehicles that are out there need to be zero emissions. Unlike Europe, where houses are rented more and cars, etc., leased and shared easily, do you think we need a culture change and some education in the UK to get away from the owning and purchasing mindset?
Yeah, that's a great question, Simon. Thank you for that. And you're absolutely right. I mean, the simple answer or the short answer is yes. And it really is about mindset. However, this mindset is moving from, as we've said, ownership to usership. And, you know, we're specifically talking about cars, and I'm specifically talking about better cars in electric vehicles. But globally, as a global thing, people are moving from ownership to usership. But education is key. And a lot of the work that Zoom does is about education. And even with the partners we've got, you know, education is a huge piece for that. So thank you for that.
I second that as well. Brilliant. Education is a huge part. It's needed.
Thank you. Can I ask, sorry, just to interrupt there, can I ask Ashley, Trevor, Sam and Edward to turn their cameras back on for the last sort of 15 minutes of the show? Just so everyone can say hello, and if there's any more questions for you guys.
Happy faces.
I think it's time for a picture. That's a full house, look at that.
That's photo worthy. Hold on, people. Right, hang on. There we go.
How long do we hold the smile for?
So do we have any more questions for the rest of the 6 special guests? I think we've seen from the chat box that everyone's really loved the energy of today. Although slightly down numbers than we have been on previous episodes, it feels like 4 times the numbers of the amount of energy. I think we can all agree. Sarah, you got your hands up? I have. You're there for me.
Oh, right, no, you're over there. You're over there for me. I just wanted to say we really need to be thinking about embedded behaviour change. So what are we doing with our brilliant innovations to reach out to children and teenagers and the sorts of people who we want to be impacting in 5-10 years from now?
Yeah. I think maybe there's a school, an EV school, maybe an EV pub as well. Lots we can do in the future, I think. Sam.
I've got an idea. I think I may have mentioned this before, but I'd love to see electric vehicle lessons when people learn to drive.
Very good. Yes.
Ooh,
very good.
In other words, you know, if all of you have driven or ridden electric vehicles in the past will know that you know, it's a sensation in its own right when you drive one for the first time. I think if we did that at that stage, then that would help.
Just on that, following
Sam,
up in reverse order, Sam, sorry, just jump on that. Norway effectively you become a members club. You get a year subscription when you buy the EV, and part of that is the education of the change. It's out there, but an interesting element that effectively OEMs have to buy into. Pretty sure it's Norway, because again, it is a change, and how do they get used to that as we approach mass market? On the education piece, we're doing something similar with the Oxford project, the Energy Superhub Oxford, that we're going around educating. It's not just EVs, it's the whole climate change piece. How can they change everything from recycling to driving and install it in them, with the expectation that the taxi they get into with their parents or the bus that they get on is and should be an EV generated from renewable sources. So something Pivot's doing as part of that and as part of the Innovate project that we've got. But again, how can we get those scripts out there to more places, and how can it get into the curriculum almost?
Can I just jump in there?
Yep.
I was talking to somebody recently who has 2 young daughters, has had his first electric car, and his daughters begged daddy to do the school run instead of mummy, because they wanted to show off the cool new electric car to all the kids as they pulled up at school. So
that is amazing, James. I know somebody.
You know that, yeah.
I do know that. And I've got a friend who's 9-year-old has started to save for a Tesla already. He's that impressed. Cybertruck. He's put it on the Cybertruck. Serious.
You mean Zoe, don't you, presumably?
Paul, you've got your hand up there. Sorry.
Yes, thank you. I was, to Sam's point about learning to drive an electric vehicle, there is a company, they were on an event last year with me, that are in Birmingham, I think they're in Birmingham, that are a completely electric vehicle learning company. So they've only got electric vehicles on their fleet, and they teach young people to drive in electric vehicles. And absolutely, from my point of view, with thinking about my kids, how easy it is to drive an electric vehicle, I think people are afraid of what they don't know. Even people say that they want to drive an automatic because, oh no, it's automatic. I wouldn't know how to do that. I think it's absolutely so important that we educate people to know how easy it is to drive, the benefits of driving, and all of that type of thing. And one last thing, I had a guy in a Wix car park. I was showing him a Kangoo van, an electric Kangoo van, and he said, I'll consider an electric van when they've got an automatic one. And the joy is they're all automatic, people. It's so cool.
So Matt, you had your hand up first.
I think Mr. Curtis was first, actually.
Oh.
Thank you, Matthew. You mentioned Wix, Paul. I was thinking Joe Wicks. Joe Wicks has had a tremendous amount of success in educating people using online platforms. When are we going to take responsibility for this education piece? The EV Cafe is all very busy talking to ourselves. We all recognise that people need to learn. Older people, like me, need to learn, but most importantly, young people do. How can we take what we're doing here into schools? Any ideas, anybody? It's all part of the curriculum anyway. Learning about climate change, learning about the environment, renewables. How do we get this into schools?
Well, they do a STEM week every year where the children are told to engage with their parents but they can have guest speakers as well. Schools are tricky because obviously you need to be totally CBS approved and all the steps like that. But there's no.
Did you not get through that, Sarah?
What?
Did you not get through that?
I know.
I just think we should give Julian a shout. He's the youngest amongst us and probably closest to school. So what did you think, Julian?
Well, no, all I was going to say is I think it's actually part of a wider conversation with regards to sustainability. And I think John pretty much covered it. I think just in my experience, speaking to, as you can imagine, I got family who are very curious about what I'm doing and how I got into the space and what I really care about, all that kind of stuff. And when you start talking about sustainability, start talking about green, almost every time EVs have come into the conversation because they are part of it. And if anything, I then go off and say, look, actually, we want to get more cars off the road. And they go, well, hold on, I like the car because the tech is cool and it's lovely. But the conversation more or less starts with, how do we have a greener environment? And I think Sam's presentation at the beginning with, the heat map I know it came from John, but I'll give it to Sam here. Was you know, really, really important, and it plays a role in it. And I watch Click every Saturday morning, and there almost, I think I've seen 2 episodes. There you go, that's it. I've seen 2 episodes where they've actually shown the heat map, and I think that kind of conversation is really important. The more you have that conversation, the more you see EVs come into it. So.
Somebody made a really good point in the chat. Sorry, Matt, can we get an education professional to come and join? So we should all reach out. My wife's a teacher, so I'll ask them. But if anybody else knows, Julian, go.
So I was just going to say, also there is the EO, children education piece. It's something I noticed, I forgot to mention. So I know that's something that's going on. I haven't looked into it much, to be frankly honest, but I know it's something that's around. So
I've done it.
There you
It's
go.
really cute. You just give a presentation and there's kids.
Jardine invited me, but we just couldn't secure a date, so I might have to look at that again, actually.
We've also got World EV Day coming up, which again is another opportunity for us to use our reach to get to young people and to help them to understand that we are old crusties, understand the world they need, and we will deliver it.
Definitely.
Cool. 2 points. Paul, on your driving schools things, little bit of a heads up just come through on a message. We're actually 3/4 of the way through discussions with Red Driving School, one of the largest driving schools in the UK, about Zoes. So watch this space there. And secondly, on the educational point, I think it, as John always says, it does boil down to us. I mean, I put myself out there to our local school. They were doing a green week. And I actually took the EV down there, took the Zoe down and you know, gave the kids a talk and let them look around it. It boils down to us guys to start pushing this message to children and, well, to the future. You know, that's what it's all about. Yeah. So we need to take it from this forum to the next now.
I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and
careful, John. Careful, John.
Oh God.
I've got an 8-month-old, and I'm looking forward to buying her that Tesla, that small baby car ones.
Yeah.
That's a good starting point. I'm a big fan of those. I think they're really cool.
I think there's so before me now, I was involved in Split the Bills, which is primarily aimed at students, and it's fascinating the behaviour you get from students who will sign up to us because we only use green energy suppliers.
Yeah.
These are the same people that it could be 25 degrees outside and they've got the heating on and the window open. And there's a massive disconnect between wanting to do the right thing and doing the right thing.
But my argument to that one has always been people like the idea, they just don't want it to cost them. I've always said that. They like the idea of going green, they just don't want it to cost them. And this is why solutions like this make sense. EV education makes sense. You know, once people have experienced an EV, for example, brilliant. Now I can start making them move. But if they haven't experienced it, for them, it seems like a cost. It seems like something they have to do. It's a great idea, but they will not participate in it until they've then experienced it and then go, oh, great. Oh, goodness me, I can now save a bit of money here. Or in our case, I don't have to own the asset and I can swap a new car in due time. So that's my argument. I think with people, it's just a cost, whatever that looks like.
Johnny, for the education piece, are you going to be pulling together the best bits of the EV Cafe series and releasing it as a video? That can be played during, rainy break days.
It's a really good idea, Edward, and it's something that we are working on in the background. But it's, as you can imagine, it's coming up to 22 hours of footage. So just editing out those 20-odd special guests that we've had on and repurposing them and regurgitating and putting them onto separate videos rather than having to watch the full 22 hours of us babbling on as well. So yeah, we absolutely will do that. And we are looking to doing a physical one towards the end of the year, subject to COVID-19 and those kind of measures, of which we'd like to invite all of those previous special guests to come on at some point to discuss it live there. There's lots of things that we've got in the plans, but as we're coming up to the last sort of 5 minutes, just want to say on behalf of all the lovely faces on the screen, thanks for tuning in today. It has had great vibes. Although the numbers have been quite substantially down this week, It felt like there was 4 or 5 times the amount of people we've had on previous. We actually had 2 extra innovators come on the call today, so taking that to 8, which is brilliant. But what I do want to say is, if anyone out there is like this lovely lot that you see on the screen and want to take part in future episodes, and you consider yourself to be an innovator, shaker, mover, whatever, in the EV world, then feel free to reach out to any one of us and let us know, because I'm sure there is room for part 2 the way it's gone down this week. But before then, I just want to give a shout out for the next session. That is on the 15th of July, and the agenda is a perfect follow-on from today, or what I think is a follow-on from today, and that is concept vehicles, concept services, transport, cities of the future. So make sure that the first thing you do is when you leave here is click on the link on any of our pages and sign up to secure your spot. We may actually consider a new platform and doing these webinars to allow those that are loyal to the EV Cafe to subscribe once and have access to all the series rather than having to keep signing up week on week. So appreciate that. That's what we have to do at the moment with Zoom. Sorry. And of course, if you've missed it in the meantime, before I get that suggestion from Edward out there, and you've missed any previous sessions, then visit the YouTube page and watch previous discussions or join the EV Cafe group. We've had something like 25 people join the EV Cafe group today. So that's great. And that's where we are 24/7, and hopefully we'll have a website to fit with that. That's all from me. Any last words? I saw, Sarah, you had your hands up.
No, I just wanted to say I've been taking notes throughout. That's what I'm always doing. Such a pen pusher. And I'll be summarising, so please feel free to dip in. But the overriding is always the same, despite the innovation and disruption. It's communication and education. That's what comes up every time. So whatever you can do to communicate and educate, please do.
Definitely.
Brilliant. And if I can ask all of those that are presented today, if they wouldn't mind sharing their content, their videos, their slides on the EV Cafe group. We've got something like I don't know, the last time I checked it was 300 members. That I'm sure everyone would like to have a look and digest it at their own pace rather than having John breathing down their neck. Any last words from anybody?
I've got one just to say to everyone that's still there. Please do subscribe to Johnny's links or his LinkedIn posts and reshare everything that he puts in terms of EV Cafe, because there's still well over 70 people there listening right now. So when you see these things on LinkedIn, share it so that we get this spread as far and wide as possible.
Thank you, Sam.
Yeah, that's the key. Education, getting the message out there for electric vehicles, Emmett Mass, all of the types of things that we're talking about today. People just don't know. Yeah. And they don't know what they don't know. So let's help them know what they don't know so that they can learn.
Yeah.
Have a great day.
We'll continue to work hard in the background to make this bigger and better and get that reach out there. And thanks for that suggestion, Sam. So we're thinking maybe a website, maybe a new platform, physical events, subject to everything else. And can't say any more. But Julian, you've got your hands up.
No, all I want to say is thank you very much. I think I'm probably the only company here that's pre-launch, and as a result, you have to understand for us, this is a great exposure as well. So thank you. It means a lot, and I look forward to working with some of you guys in due course. But yeah, thank you.
Pleasure, Julian. Absolute pleasure to have you on.
Always a pleasure. Shall we start by saying goodbye, everyone? Trevor, sorry, missed you then.
Yeah, just second that. Thanks very much for the opportunity. It's awesome.
Thanks. And Ashley, don't forget you're on mute.
Thank you, everybody. Yeah, much appreciate the invite and great to present to everybody.
James.
Yeah, thanks again, everybody. And having been following this series from number 1, I think you said it's number 11. It's been a great experience and covered some wonderful topics. And as I say, it's been great to have Zoom involved today. Thanks.
And James, we'd always like you to be involved in future episodes as well. And
with us.
Yeah, we're definitely. And I think we can all say together at the same time after 3, goodbye, everybody, and Julian's mum.
Bye, Julian's mum.
3, 2, 1. Goodbye, everybody, and Julian's mum.
Bye, Julian's mum.
Zoom needs to cut out now.
Now.